Hi, everyone. My name is Tony. I am the co-founder and chief product officer here at Fundraise, and I'm very excited about today's webinar. Thank you all so much for joining us. Fair warning, we're going to talk about a lot. There's going to be a lot of complex items from every aspect of fundraising that we're just going to throw at the screen today and look at. Please sit back, relax. There's no way you're going to retain everything we talk about today. The goal really is to spark some conversations in your own organizations, maybe some takeaways you all can circle around and talk about, but also to have you all raise your hands and come talk to us more if you're interested in what we're talking about today. Really just want to start the conversation and have some fun. As well, you all took the time out of your day to be here today, so I didn't want to waste anyone's time, so we're just going to talk about it all. So it's a lot. I will talk fast. Please don't let that be overwhelming. We'll share the recording, of course, after this if you need to digest it on your own time. A little bit about myself, and then we'll jump right in. I'll soon throw some slides up on the screen, and I'm actually going to jump into the Fundraise platform as well. So we'll see some real examples. It'll be fun today. But a little bit about myself. I previously worked in a nonprofit organization as a creative director. So I've built hundreds of fundraising campaigns. Part of my role there was also working on how those campaigns were performing so that we could make changes during the campaign as well as after. After my time working at the organization as a creative director, I started Fundraise with a couple of my team members, and I've been doing this for about a decade and absolutely love it. One of my favorite things to do is work with organizations to visualize what's happening on the ground in their fundraising campaigns. So many times organizations try something, they let it go, and then they look back after it happened and they say, well, what just happened, right? Once the smoke clears, they kind of take a look at what happens. And what I love to do is help organizations build dashboards and ways of understanding what's happening on the ground so that they can make real-time adjustments and just work smarter as an organization. This is something that in my executive role at Fundraise, I do all the time. We have all different departments who are trying to make decisions for where we allocate resources, what hires need to be made, things like that. And we always need the data. We need the data on the ground. Like, how much time are we spending on these particular areas? How much does that cost? Like, when we have the data and real-time indicators of what's actually happening on the ground, it truly helps our executive team be the best that we can be. Leaders are good because they can lead, but in what direction? And the data is what tells us in what direction we should be leading, right? Or we should be moving our teams forward. So I'll speak a little bit today kind of from my perspective of an executive and running an organization, and how data can influence your board or executive team. So I'll speak from that perspective as well, just having been on that side of the table and knowing how it works. The other thing that I really hope to get across today, and this is something I've learned, of course, with my time working with organizations, is that many times organizations will push aside sort of the data and using it. They'll send data to their accountants when they request it, but they're not really doing anything with it to sort of inform their next step, right? I think a lot of small to medium-sized organizations, the complaint we often hear is, hey, we don't have the expertise in our team to build these. We don't have an IT team, or maybe we don't have the financial resources to sort of put these things together. Fundraise handles that really well. You'll see our platform in a moment. Reporting is built right into the system. And the goal here is not really a demo of that tool. But that's a fair complaint. Traditionally, data is hard, right? It's involving math, it's formulas, it's like understanding data modeling. It's a fairly hard thing. We believe here at Fundraise, we've made it much simpler by building it into the platform, and we'll see that in a moment. And so while I understand the complaint that data is hard, one thing that I've consistently found is that everybody can do something with data once it's presented. Once it's on a dashboard, once it's visible, it makes sense to everybody. You don't need a special skill to make sense and see patterns. Humans are like really good at pattern recognition. So if you have a dashboard that shows you how your live campaign is running, right, to make decisions about the future, everyone on this call is going to gain insight from that. So it's not a skill set that you have or don't have. Everyone can do something when they see the pattern. So in this call, we're going to be talking about looking at that. And I don't want to push aside the complexity of building dashboards. It's challenging, but we'll talk a little bit about how Fundraise has solved a lot of that and sort of abstracted a lot of the complexity away. Okay, that was a long intro. Let me share my screen and let's just get into the slides and we'll go from there. As I mentioned, today we'll talk about reporting, really from the perspective of using data to predict and to manage the future, not just the past. So often, organizations just look at reporting as a way to look backwards and not a way to sort of manage what's happening on the ground. And that's really the focus of today's conversation. We're going to start with why reporting is about the future, how to think about that. I think we'll have fun in that conversation. We're going to look at 4 excellent dashboards as a real example of that. And then we'll close by actually just live building and sort of demonstrating how it works inside a Fundraise and what it looks like to actually build up dashboards based on data in your own fundraising platform. Okay, let's dive in. Reporting is about the future. Reporting should not be a chore. There's a lot on this slide. I apologize, everybody. We're going to go through it. Don't worry. Reporting should not be a chore for your organization. We speak with a lot of organizations who really see reporting as a way of looking backwards, really just creating a report when someone asks for it. Accountant is running monthly reconciliation and they are asking for data export, right? So that to them is reporting. We need data about what happened so we can give it to someone because it's asked for, because it's required, right? This makes reporting a chore. Reporting should not be a chore. It should be an active part of how our organization works and makes decisions. If we are just using our data to report on what has happened in the past, we're really wasting one of our most valuable assets. And it's worth pointing out here that yes, reporting in the past is helpful. Accountants need to report on what happened in the past. That is required for your organization to do. No shade. Sometimes accountants have to do boring things, and that's okay. There's a aspect of reporting that is backwards looking. That's not what we're talking about today. Today, we're talking about data dashboards that can inform our future. So conversations are sort of like the way you can think about an organization, what conversations they might be having in their own offices, that if the organization views reporting as a chore, you might hear things like, well, finance is responsible, or IT is responsible for reporting. We don't actually deal with that part of it. Or, hey team, I've got a quarterly board meeting coming up, so I'm busy all week. Please don't bother me. I've got to build some reports this week, right? That's really reactive sort of way of thinking about data. And that's what I want to switch our mindset from in this call, is to see how data can be used to inform us about our future. To really understand this, you have to understand that data is an organizational asset. Just like the funds that are donated to you, the equipment and your people, data is an asset. Wasting your data is no different than mishandling a donation. It is something that contributes to your mission. The use of it can accelerate your mission or slow it down, right? Your data is an asset. And when you start to think about it from that perspective, the tools you have to make sense of that data become incredibly important, right? We put money in the bank so that it can go to our programs. Where is our data going? How are we visualizing and actually using our data? Or is it just ending up on annual spreadsheets that can be buried in some hard drive and we're not actually using it? Real mind shift is to think about data as an organizational asset. Here's what it looks like when you start to think about data and reporting for the future. Smart organizations will use data to predict the future. They will use data to see problems before they occur. You start to see cracks in a campaign, or maybe donation conversion rates slightly slipping, right? You see big problems right before they can happen, or they become bigger ones. You can spot opportunities before they pass, right? Maybe a particular fundraiser is their campaign page, their peer-to-peer campaign page is blowing up, right? And we should be reaching out to that fundraiser, understand what's happening. What are you doing? Like who is your network that's allowing this to happen? So being able to spot opportunities before they pass. And then one that resonates most with me in the executive role is adjusting resource allocation based on what's happening on the ground, right? Rather than waiting for the end of a quarter, waiting for the end of the year to have all the reports built up to look backwards, we're able to make resource allocations mid-campaign or mid-year, and that really accelerates our team and our vision and what we're trying to accomplish. So if a team needs to hire more, they can ask for that, and it probably is not going to get approved just on an ask. But if you can prove it and show us why with data and show us where the lag, maybe our team doesn't have time to respond to every customer's request or whatever it is, we're able to adjust our resource allocation based on what's happening on the ground. Data is going to move an executive and board so much faster than anything else, right? Showing the data, improving it, and we'll get to the charts and graphs that we'll do that in a moment. But showing the data really helps here. I know I'm spending a little bit of time on this, but I think it's really helpful to understand that as an organization, you have a mission. Your job is to accomplish your mission as efficiently and effectively and as fast as possible. That's all about resource allocation and resource prioritization. You only have a certain number of members on your team. If you had unlimited people, your mission wouldn't be a problem. It would be solved. But you have limited resources to be able to solve things. So using data to decide where to put things is incredibly important. A real example of this, an organization came to us and was basically like, hey guys, we know that we have a really good recurring program. It is growing. We really want to pitch our team that we need a new role here, right? But we can't just ask for it. We need to show why, right? We need to show the opportunity cost of not hiring. We need to show what's happening with this program. So we built up a data dashboard just like we're going to look at in a moment. And that team used it, one, to really help them launch like the next phase of their sustainer program, but also to help them advocate for that new role, to adjust resource allocation in real time based on what's happening on the ground. Organizations who use reporting to improve the future, you might hear them say things like, hey, good news. It's time to notify the programs team. We can add 10 more student applicants in the next quarter. We're seeing a 30% increase in new sustainer signups. That's incredible, being able to make that change in real time rather than having to wait for a whole new campaign year, right? Smart organizations who are working with data are able to do that because they have the data, so there's really not a risk in increasing program, right? So I think that that's clear. I have a few slides and doodles to kind of help illustrate this point. Hopefully they're not too elementary, but they helped me kind of understand this concept a little bit more. So how are we changing the future with data? Imagine we have a timeline, right? You're smack in the middle of this timeline. The past has happened. It's a fact. It's a single line. The future could go anywhere. It could go up or down. We don't know. Your accountants always care about what happened in the past. Your auditor cares about what happens in the past. Those are historic reports. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about is future facing. That's what your board cares about. Your board cares about the difference in the distance between this upper bound and lower bound. All the time in executive meetings or board meetings, we're discussing what is the upper and lower bound of next quarter, right? That is so important to make decisions, right? Because if it's super wide and super open, it's truly impossible to know what a possible future is. So it's almost paralyzing to make decisions in. Where data comes in is if you have a dashboard that's showing you what's actually happening in real time, you're able to better predict the future, right? You know where donations came from, how they're coming in, at the rate that they're coming. So you're not changing the future, but you are limiting our view and understanding of what is actually possible. The executive team and board no longer need to worry about this very low bottom bound because it's not possible anymore based on the data we're seeing on the ground. We can see that, hey, this is our new reality. Now we can make better decisions based on that new reality, which could be hiring immediately to keep this growth going or funneling more funds into programs immediately so that they can benefit from this impact in our fundraising campaign. So that probably makes sense to everybody, but this little doodle and chart helps me understand it. Your executives are always going to ask for upper and lower bounds. This is unacceptable. This is more acceptable, right? Because it's informed and actually allows us to make a decision. So prove it. Organizations that use fundraising intelligence on Fundraise have a 12% better donor retention rate. This was the last time we ran these numbers, and it might have been a year or two ago. We should probably rerun them and we could maybe update everyone here. But what we saw when we looked at this was organizations who use our intelligence tool have a 12% better donor retention rate. Well, what does that mean? That means that this reporting tool is not just about looking backwards. If we're about looking backwards, future performance wouldn't matter. They're just reporting on what happened. This is a way to look at how it actually impacts what's happening on the ground, right? And so this tells us, look, this tool is actually impacting decisions being made by the organization, and it results in better retention, right? This one is fairly straightforward to us because Donor retention is all about, well, who are my missing donors? How much am I losing? How do I go get it, right? And that's literally what a data dashboard can bring to life. Another just nonprofit example is climate.us. Thank you to the heroes who put this website back up. It used to be climate.gov and it got taken down, but now we're back up. It's a great website. It has tons of indicators that are like basically key performance indicators for the climate, right? And this is exactly what we're talking about. This is not looking backwards data, right? This is live, active data to show us where we're trending and where we're going so that large, slow-moving institutions can make decisions. Remember when earlier I mentioned, hey, moving executive teams and moving the board, the best thing you can do, right? The best tool you have to do that is show what's actually happening on the ground with data, right? Hey, this chart is going up to the left. We need more people to respond to these donors or to keep this growth going. Whatever it is, data is so helpful for large organizations who have decision paralysis sometimes, right? Data allows you to move opinions out of the room. It's no longer responding to the loudest person at the table. We're looking at data and what's actually happening, and we're able to make decisions from there. Okay, that was a lot of doodles and fun conversations. Hopefully that was helpful a bit. Right now, we're actually gonna dive into the platform. We're gonna look at 4 dashboards, and then we'll do a little bit of live building. So this will get hopefully more fun as we move forward. The 4 dashboards we're going to look at, I would consider required for any organization. One is an annual performance indicator. Your just overall dashboard that is a snapshot that anytime a board member or an executive team says, how are we doing? You should share this link. It's not a report that should it's not a report that should have to be created on the spot. It should exist. You should be able to check on it anytime. And better, you should have it sent to your inbox on a regular basis so you can check in on it. So we're going to look at that report. Another report is obviously a donor retention report. This is commonly your LIBONT or SIBONT, your last year, but unfortunately not this year donors. These are donors who you've lost, and of course are your most efficient pathway to get more revenue is to win them back. So we'll look at that type of report. We're also going to look at a sustainer health report, similar to a donor retention report, but based on a recurring donors, right? How much revenue are we generating each month from sustainers? What's our MRR? Like, how do we understand that visually? And then the last report I want to talk through is really more of a campaign-based report. So for any given campaign that we're running, how do we know if it's working? Are we reaching our goals? And what marketing channels are actually fueling that growth? Okay, so let me change my screen share here. We'll jump right into platform and we'll keep it going. Here we have Fundraise platform. So right now I'm inside of Fundraise. To customers, this will look very familiar. And soon we'll jump right into our intelligence platform, which is essentially our advanced reporting tool. Worth pointing out before we go anywhere else that this is the dashboard of the Fundraise platform. If you're a customer of ours, again, this is familiar, but what we're talking about is essentially where we land all of our customers when they first log in. It is live, active, what is happening on the ground, year-over-year performance, retention performance. What are the most important things to be looking at? Out of the box, all Fundraise customers have this basic dashboard. What we're looking at are more custom dashboards based on different strategies. The other thing I will mention is the dashboards we're talking about are not your quick, I need a list of all the donations from last month. That's incredibly easy to run from transactions or maybe supporters. You need a quick list of show me all my supporters by their last donation date, right? I need my LIBONT list. You can easily add filters in Fundraise to these lists and get a click export. Those are list filtering. Those are CSV exports. That is technically reporting, and that probably solves 90% of your needs. What we're talking about today is what we call fundraising intelligence. It's a whole part of a platform with really one of the most data visualization tools available in a fundraising platform today. So again, we're in a demo account. So what we're looking at is just random demo data. It'll make sense, but please know it's just demo data. And we're actually going to look at those 4 reports that we mentioned. So the first one I want to walk through is like an annual performance snapshot. This report is something that anytime an executive or a board member clicks in and says, hey, where are we at? How are we doing? You should not have to do any work to get that data. You should just be able to jump in, print it, or share a link, right? So in this case, I'll run through everything in the dashboard, but before I start, just to sort of position us, this data dashboard and all of the dashboards we send can also be exported and created as PDFs. So that's really the end goal is, hey, we've got a board meeting coming up. I need the printout or I need the slide deck. Let's just create the slide deck with this information on it. Once you have this dashboard in the system, these things can be printed out easily. Like they can even be sent to your inbox, and we'll talk about that later on a regular basis. But you can come in and literally just make these perfect for the slides. And then all of a sudden you have, oops, let me see, I think I dragged that too far. All of a sudden you have exceptional slides that you're ready to go. Again, not having to build a presentation or build a report every time, but being able to jump in and click in and see what's happening on the ground immediately. So that's just the PDF version of this. Now we'll walk through actually what's happening here on this dashboard. So if I have an annual report snapshot, the goal is at any given time throughout the year, I can come in and see what's happening so that we can readjust or make decisions in real time rather than having to wait till we're done with a particular campaign or wait till we're done with the year to make decisions. So here we can see how much we've raised, what's the change from last year. A way that I always like to look at data is month over month over the year. Fundraising is incredibly seasonal. So this $91,000 doesn't really help us until we understand, well, what does that mean by month and specifically compared to last year? Now, although this is demo data, we can see, wow, we are very well above where we were last year. This is excellent. Another way to break down data in an annual sort of review is what is the mix of that based on channel. So we like to split that by one-time, recurring, and offline, right? And then seeing that balance by month is also incredibly helpful. You can see patterns change. If all of a sudden 1 month you basically have dropped off and have no one-times and everything is an offline, well, that maybe indicates a problem with your website or sort of loss of traffic there. Another way that I like to break down revenues by campaign. And Fundraise's marketing team, I work very closely with our marketing team. We actually use a report that's just like this as well. We use this, Fundraise marketing team is trying to collect leads. Organizations like you all are trying to collect donors. Those are different, but fundamentally they're the same thing. We're trying to get people to do one thing. We have many different campaigns at Fundraise that we launch. This webinar is an example. We'll have some leads that come in from the webinar, and that'll be a color on our bar for this month, right? We use this type of report to see what activities are we doing that's driving action so that we can jump in and respond. In this case, okay, we've got some campaign called General Tickets. Again, this is a demo account, so things are probably not named well. But we've got some campaign that's just absolutely, it's accelerating, it's growing, it's awesome. What happened in this month? We can actually see what campaigns worked and what didn't. And of course, see the mix throughout the year, which is really helpful to understand what's actually driving activity or not. Of course, an annual report sort of snapshot should also look at donors. What donors are we bringing in? Show me the mix of new donors. You probably also want to be looking at pledged revenue. So not just how much we've actually taken in, but hey, how do we have promised? And when do we expect that? Which is incredibly important for cash flow, especially for the executive team trying to make decisions. Another report that I like to always bring into an annual performance snapshot is a MRR report, which is, if you're unfamiliar with the term, it is monthly recurring revenue. Essentially, how much money are we bringing in on a regular basis from our recurring donors? And MRR is like the professional way to say that. So in this case, we can see that number, but we can also see over month what the actual facts on the ground was. And we can see, okay, well, February and March, we actually did pretty good. We collected some extra MRR from new recurring donors. That's good. But over the last 3 months, we don't have any new sustainers. Have we dropped off in our communication or our marketing for our sustainer program that can allow us to readjust? And sort of the last chart that you're always going to want on a annual snapshot is, what are your lapsed donor count? I like to show the lapsed donor count, and we're going to dig much more into detail in both of these. So I won't go too much into depth on this one, but showing the number of lapsed donors, excellent. But also showing it by month in the previous year where they were lost. That's helpful because these donors who gave in October, November, December, we're probably not too worried about right now because that's about the time we might expect them to give again in the next year. But months that have passed, well, it's been more than 12 months since these donors gave. They are officially lost or lapsed. So these February and March donors are more concerning to us than the ones that are in October, November, December. So showing this by month is really helpful to know where to act. So this is a regular annual snapshot. This is something that you can, like I said, create the PDF, save that view of it, and even better yet, send it to yourself or your team member, and you can literally embed that PDF right in an email that goes to them every month, right? Start the day you have this sort of review meeting with everybody getting this, right, in the morning, and then you come to the meeting and this is what's on the screen and you're circling around it and talking about what's happening. That is a way that you can use an annual performance snapshot. In a nutshell, though, this is your quarterly board review, and this is what you should be going over, and it shouldn't have to be created every time. It's one single report template that exists. It's always updated, and you just print it when you need it. Okay, let's look at another one. I'm going to jump to donor retention. Donor retention, for most of you all, is probably around 50%. If you're north of 50%, you're better than the average. This is just one of the absolute best opportunities that nonprofits have to accelerate their mission, is making sure they're not losing the people who actually care and understand what they're trying to accomplish. Stop losing those people. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but one of the biggest gaps in donor retention is really who did we lose? When did we lose them? What's their contribution? Is it worth going after them again? And a good data dashboard like this is going to allow you to see what's actually happening on the ground so you can inform next steps, assign teams, whatever is needed. So quickly here, we're looking at a donor retention dashboard. We've got a retention rate. We can see how many donors we've lost from last year, but better yet, we can see how much revenue we've lost from the previous year. What this is calculating is the total amount of donations in the last year from these 23 donors. So basically, if we just give up and don't go after our LIBUNT donors, we're saying goodbye to over 100 grand in funding, right? Below that, and this is what will look common to most people, is your LIBUNT report. We've got supporters here. We've got their name. Of course, we'll see this later, but you can add address and emails and phone numbers and all the data you need. Right now, we're just looking at the real important ones. When was their last donation date? Who are they assigned to on our team so that we know who to talk to about getting this donor back? And also, how much did they give last year? What's their total giving? And we might also want to say, hey, how much have they pledged this year? Because Debbie looks lost, but you know what? She's actually might just be a contraction. But we do have a promise for $52,000 in a donation. So this is probably like the flat CSV you might have for this type of report. Again, we've talked about this a little bit, but I really also like to break down LIBUNT or SIBUNT donors based on when we lost them. So in this case, we're just looking at LIBUNT, so last year lapsed donors by the month. And then another way that you could look at this is inside of Fundraise, every donor can be assigned to a team member. So you probably have portfolios and different dev managers are handling, a different set of donors. As we meet with our portfolio managers, we can sit down with Aaron and say, Aaron, you've got 6 donors who are lapsed. Let's talk about them. What's going on? What's going on with this relationship? So seeing that by portfolio is really helpful as well. 2 more reports or 2 more charts on this. One is just retention rate over time, or are we improving this or not? And then the SIBUNT by donor tier is an example of how you can prioritize your team's time, right? If you just see let me explain first what's showing on this chart and then we'll dig into it. But basically what we're seeing is the count of donors who were lost by the year of their last donation. So this means in 2025, we've got 29. And again, remember, this is all demo data. So your organization will look different. In 2025, we lost 29 donors. In 2024, we've got 43 donors who their last donation date was in 24, right? So this is like a SIBUNT report, but seeing it when we lost them. What's extra helpful is layering on top the impact of the donor. So for VIP donors, maybe we define that as donors who gave over $5,000. Maybe a big is between $500 and $5,000, and a regular donor is less than that. Well, we've only got limited time. We've got a limited resource. Who do we focus on? Of course, it makes sense. Hey, let's probably focus on 23 to 25 for our SIBUNT list. And we're really going to lean in on big and VIP donors, right? VIP donors are going to be assigned to our ED. They're going to try and set up some meetings, rebuild those relationships. Big donors, we're going to send to our general dev team, and we're going to go work on those. So seeing this data like this can really help you focus, because if you were just to go after this huge list of 300, it's going to be really hard to personalize that communication, and you're just going to be spreading yourself really thin. Okay, no moving quickly, but we've got a bit more to cover. Hopefully everyone's still tuned in. Let me jump to campaign attribution. This is one of my favorite reports because I do like things on the marketing side. So let's say we're running a particular campaign. It's a week-long campaign, and we've put some spend behind it, maybe on Facebook, and we're sending out a bunch of emails. We're spending time on this, so we need to know how it's performing. Well, first of all, every campaign you run should have a goal, right? So set the goals for the campaign and filter sort of the data that this dashboard's looking at by the form or the web pages or whatever it is that sort of defines the parameters of this campaign. We're going to want to look at total raised for sure. We're going to want to have a goal for new donors and total donors. In this case, it looks like, you know what? We're doing good on total donors. We're preaching the choir well. We need to fill the pews. We need to get more people here, right? So this indicates we need to go and outreach into new donors. What's really powerful about sort of a marketing channel campaign attribution report, especially in Fundraise, is that Fundraise is capturing a lot of data about donations that happen. So if you have a donation, let's say you send an email and you have your UTMs on the link and someone clicks a link and then makes a donation, Fundraise is capturing that data down so that you can then later report on where these transactions are coming from. This is often called like source reporting or source attribution. UTMs are just the standard way that every company in the world measures marketing performance, right? Today's not about UTMs, and we won't dig into it too much, but essentially any links that you put out into the wild, you add some data to it that allows Fundraise to track it down and to say, hey, this donation came from Facebook. So in this case, we know we've sent some emails for this campaign. We've got Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Let's say, maybe Instagram and Twitter are X. These are organic, we're just posting, but Facebook we're actually paying for, right? So now we can see, hey, last month we spent $3,000 on Facebook. Awesome, we doubled that, right? So that's great ROI, but not only just a good ROI, but look, we've got a decent average amount for each donation, and these are 40 donors. Like those could be totally new donors. So that 3,000 spend on Facebook, totally worth it, and probably worth increasing that spend based on how this is performing. So just another example of mid-campaign being able to say, hey, money that we're spending on Facebook is 2 for 1, right? We can't get that anywhere else. Let's go ahead and allocate a little bit more funding to this because this is the best place we can be spending it on. So that's sort of a campaign attribution report. The marketing nerds on the call today for sure want to dig into this more. Let's continue the conversation. I don't want to overwhelm folks that aren't super familiar with UTM. So let's move on from that. The last report I'll show before we start having some fun building up is a sustainer report. This is actually a fairly common report that organizations reach out to us for. And I love it so much because we're huge proponents of monthly giving programs. It is, I don't need to preach about why it is so important to have a solid recurring program. I assume everyone on the call knows that, but building a dashboard to really see that, to see the opportunity, can bring it to life if it's not a part of your organization today. So what would we have on a sustainer performance snapshot dashboard? We'd want to see our mix of one-time and recurring. A lot of organizations fall between like 20 to 25%, which is fairly healthy. Seeing where you fall is just helpful to watch at any time. We always want to know the number of active sort of recurring donors. We have the active sustainers. And one chart that I love showing is like a running sum of sustainers. So anytime you have a membership program where you need a number of people to sign up, in this case, sustainers, I love showing a running sum that shows the graph always going up. One, it's just encouraging, but it shows when there are spikes and sort of stalls in your membership program growth. And it also helps account for dropping, right? So you're going to lose sustainers. And an approach like this really helps you understand, hey, if you look at the sustainers we're gaining and the sustainers we're losing, are we still going forward? Are we still going up? Right. And that's the most important thing is, are we gaining more than we're losing? Because you will lose. And we'll get to that in the bottom part of this dashboard, unfortunately. Another sort of metric you'd want for a sustainer program is recurring revenue by month. Easy. We can just do like trailing 12 months. And then these greens are just highlighting new subscriptions, new signups, as opposed to existing signups. I always like to count donors and show the revenue. So these charts are essentially showing the same thing, but here on the bottom one, we're looking at the actual count of the donors. So these two charts would generally be would line up. But if you ran a new campaign and you gained a whole bunch of new sustainers, but they were all coming in at $5, like way under your average, then you would start to see a divergence in these two charts. And that would help you understand, hey, we are gaining a lot of new donors, but the revenue impact is really minimal. Maybe we need to reach out to these new donors and have an increase campaign and get them from 5 to 25. So showing revenue and sustainer, I think is really helpful. Another chart I like is, we've already talked about this, active MRR. Basically, your executive team is going to want to know, how much can we rely on every month that's coming in from sustainers? Not the number of them, but how much can we actually expect? And then it's helpful to see how much new MRR we're gaining each month. This is a really exciting report to be sharing with your team, especially if you're launching a new recurring program. It's really hard to demonstrate how exciting it is, how impactful a recurring program is when you have one sign up and then another sign up, right? It's hard to see like how that snowballs. But if you look at a new MRR by month, we gained $255 in February of this year for this demo organization. But that's not just a one-time donation. That is, hey, every single month we're getting this $255. Right? And then we've got a new revenue of $625 every single month. This is net new revenue coming in every month, and it will continue every month. So that's, if you understand how to read this chart, it is fairly powerful to show the impact of a recurring program. Okay, now the bad news. Let's talk about churn sustainers. Churn is just as important as gained, especially when you're talking about a recurring program. It's similar to donor retention, but it can be handled a little bit differently when you're talking about a monthly donor program. Two types of ways to look at this. Similar, on the top, we're looking at the number of donors that are churned. 12 of them have failed, meaning their payment method has failed. 2 of them have canceled, meaning they actually called us and said, hey, I want to cancel that recurring. We don't really care too much about the cancels. We'll get them back later. The failed are unacceptable. These are involuntary churn. And that's just a payment method failing, right? We should have recaptured that payment method. And Fundraise has all sorts of tools and automations to send donors updates even before their payment fails by sending them, emails before their card expires. So you can avoid this. But this sort of like upward trend is a little bit scary. So that tells us, hey, we need to look at what automations we have set up to reduce this. And then, of course, similarly, right below that, we have that, well, how much did we lose? How much did we churn by month? And so, here's a good example of comparing these. Hey, we only lost 1 donor in December of 24, but that was a pretty significant loss, right? That was almost $300 that we lost from our MRR. So seeing these two charts and when you're losing is really helpful. And then, of course, yes, just like a retention report, you're going to want to look at the actual people who make this up. Here we see churn sustainers. We've got the subscription, the supporter, their last payment date, how much they were recurring, and of course the status, which has failed, and then what their total donation amount for this particular subscription was. And if we sort that, now we know where to focus, right? So like Colby was a fairly important donor here, providing almost over $10,000 in funding through her subscription. So really important donor, cares about the mission. Their subscription failed. Like, let's get that back in action. And seeing this list and sorting it by the actual sustainer's impact will help you focus. Okay, that was a lot so far. Let's regather. I'm gonna update my screen here and we're gonna build a dashboard and we're gonna have some fun, a little sandbox. Okay, here on my screen, I've got a blank dashboard and we're gonna start adding widgets and start throwing data onto the screen and helping us make sense. Our goal today is to see how much we've raised and sort of make sense of our past couple years of fundraising. So let's just start. We'll just jump in and select data. And it's worth pointing out here just very quickly, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I love building dashboards and working with organizations on this. I am not, or the goal of this is not to demonstrate every feature. So I'm going to move fairly quickly just to show what's possible. If you have questions or want to keep on talking or see examples, definitely reach out to us. Okay, so I'm just going to throw total donation amount on the screen. I'm just going to click create, so that gets added as a widget here. And that looks like way too much. That doesn't seem right. So let me add a filter to my dashboard to get the actual data we want to be looking at. So in this case, I know that I want a date. So I'm going to grab donation date and we'll say, let's get the last 2 years and we'll include the current. Okay, that's more like it. Now, probably also want to add a filter for status because I might have a bunch of pending donations or failed donations, and I really just want to look at complete donations. So, okay, there we go. That is good, but I'd love it to look like a currency. So we'll just have it look like a currency, and I don't need the decimals. So there we go. Okay, perfect. That tells us a bunch of information so far. In the last 2 years, this is how much we've raised. Now let's make more sense of that. Let's say we want to see this data by time. So I'll duplicate this and I'll just jump into this widget. And rather than an indicator, I'll choose a column chart, right? So we want to see a column chart. Awesome. I'm going to break this by month. And knows I want a date. Yep, I want to grab the donation date. Perfect. That's what I wanted. I would love to have value labels. That looks good. And I will just apply this to our dashboard. So now I have some pretty helpful reports so far. I can see how much we've raised and I can see that value over time. Awesome. So you can see when it came in, but we can't yet see how it came in. What did we do? What were we doing during the course of the year that brought in this revenue? So let's take a look. I'm just going to duplicate this and probably drag this guy down. Okay. And we want to see what campaign brought this information in. So rather than months and donation date, let's look at categories. There's probably a few ways to do this, but the best one is just, for our purposes, going to be form name, right? Because we have a different form for different campaigns. So there we go. All of a sudden, we can see by campaign what's bringing in this. So we could totally, we could sort this to understand it this way. Or if we just were like, I don't need to see all that. I just want to see the balance of it and sort of what the mix is. Well, we can create a pie chart for that. And I'll remove categories. We'll make this a little more legible. And that seems great. So I'll click apply here. Okay. Now we have a lot of information. We have how much we've raised, when we raised it, and also when it came in. So we can start to see what campaigns, what forms were driving this activity over this amount of time. Now, a really common next question is like, well, that's helpful. I love the visuals, but I need the raw data. I need a campaign dashboard that I can also just export data from because I regularly have to export data and pump it into this system or whatever. So getting your real data is basically building a pivot table. So we'll just jump in and we'll go build a pivot table here. And let's say we want to look at, show me the supporters who make up that data of those visualizations. So no problem. We'll just grab supporter ID and then we'll just grab, their full names so we know we're looking at some humans. And we could add address and email address and phone and all these types of things. But for right now, we'll just add amount, donation amount, and that's good. Let's just make it look like a currency. Decimal points, keep the accountants happy. All right, there we go. Probably want to sort this guy too. Okay, good. Now we've got how much we brought in, where it came from, when it came in, who are the donors who make that up. There's a lot of information to sort of understand and make some decisions on as to where we can allocate resources, what we should redo, what we should stop doing. Another really cool feature that I like, we're stepping a little bit into sort of features you should be requesting in your own platform or be using, is a drill down. So for instance, in this case, look, in September, we've got over 100 grand. Wow, what happened in September? That seems fairly surprising. How do we dig into that? So we can click into that and then the dashboard just refreshes with that data. So yep, that's right. That's a total donation amount for September. And here we can see, okay, really we have some particular form that represented 85% of this 100 grand. That's the campaign that was driving all that activity. Also, hey, these are the donors that gave during that time frame, right? So we've got 33 donors who contributed 100 grand in this month. And we can clear that selection, get back to all of our campaigns, right? So you can see this dashboard, it is active, it's living, it's going to be always updated, but you can also be clicking in and interact with it. So it's not a static tool. It's really a tool that you can dig into and learn more from. I think I've covered these a little bit already, but I do want to just extra drill in. Features that you should have in your reporting tool are, one, the quick ability to get this data out of here. So yes, in almost all cases, you can be building the dashboards you need inside of Fundraise, but getting data out and being able to download a CSV of the exact report you've built, whatever custom columns you have, whatever custom formulas you have, just being able to export that, really valuable. You can pump that into Claude or GPT and do a whole bunch of other stuff with it. So being able to export data is one thing, but you should also have a visual export of that data. You just built this amazing dashboard. It should be used in board meetings. It should be used in executive meetings to advocate for different points. And we can build a quick PDF. And I think I've demonstrated already, like, dragging and making this perfect for whatever format you'd like it for. I always recommend basically treating these as slide decks, right? And just making it a slide deck. And then you have a campaign meeting every Wednesday and you meet around this, and that's what it is. The last thing I'll show, and I actually use this tool, is the regular sending of the PDF attachment, or just embedding this dashboard in a single column layout in an email. All of the organizations that use Fundraise, we actually have their data pumped into a single intelligence environment. And every morning I get an email with a custom dashboard that I've built that shows us who's up and who's down, who's launching new campaigns, who should we go congratulate, who should we reach out to from our customer team. So I use this tool every day. I open an email and I scroll it and I look at all the information that's coming in. And that's something that you should also be doing in your own organization at a minimum weekly, but there's no reason not to build a dashboard and be looking at what happened, literally just what happened yesterday. You can build a daily dashboard of who are the new donors, did we lose anyone, things like that, and just have that in your inbox. It shouldn't be something that is just has to be built every time you want information. It should be always active, always ready. It's a live link, and better yet, it should be just sent to you on a regular basis, so you don't have to actually do anything to get it. Okay, that was a lot. I am pretty sure we are well over time. Truly appreciate you all being here. It was fun to share this information. We look forward to chatting soon. Thanks, everyone.